Es Colombia, no Colombia.
It's Colombia, not Colombia.
Colombia with an O.
It's Colombia, not Colombia. Colombia with an O.
Welcome everybody to episode number 32 of the Colombia Soccer Pod. It is Monday, January 24th, 2022. It's Monday night, which means it's the Colombia Soccer Pod. And we got a big week coming up. We got the week. We've been waiting for this now for a couple months. It is the home stretch on the road to the World Cup in Qatar at the end of this very year. I'm nervous as all hell. I don't know about you, but I mean, ever since the last episode, which was on Wednesday, if you want to go back and listen to our reaction to the convocatoria, to the roster for the upcoming games against Peru and Argentina, you can go back and watch it. Also subscribe, like our page, of course, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. But I talked about it then. I'm already nervous. As soon as their call-ups are published, I'm already nervous. But especially this time around, because it is, we're walking on the tightrope. We are walking on a very, very fragile, very tight rope right now. Colombia on the road to Qatar. We're in. I mean, today we're in again. We're fourth place. But there's nothing guaranteed at all. We have 1 foot in, maybe 1 foot out. I mean, maybe half, maybe a toe. We're hanging by a toe of the last direct place. And man, it's going to be a wild ride. And we still got a few days coming up. So let's talk about it. Let's get the show on the road. My name is Juan Pimiento. You can follow me, as you can see on your screen, at Pimiento Football on Twitter. And you can follow our show on social media, as you see right there. There we go. Right there on Twitter, at Concu Soccer Pod on Twitter. On Instagram, Colombia Soccer Pod on Facebook. The Colombia Soccer Pod. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe so you can get the episodes notified to you as soon as we go live. And you can watch all the other episodes from the past. Again, last Wednesday, I broke down the roster that Reinaldo Rueda announced on Wednesday for these upcoming games. I broke it down. Some interesting notes, a lot of questionable, and I don't make any bones about it. They are questionable. So go back and listen to that episode if you want to get a full breakdown of the roster, who's in, who's out, who's missing. And we'll talk about who's in now because we got changes on the roster. We'll get to that in a minute. Of course, afterwards, we'll break it all down. Again, we got a few days, so we still have a few things to figure out. No practices as of yet, at least enough to really report on any potential lineups. I got one in mind that I kind of alluded to on the previous episode, the emergency pod from last Wednesday after the roster was announced. I alluded to it. I'll break it down today, my lineup, and then maybe what I think, although this is an impossible ask, what Rueda could be thinking could be the lineup for this Friday. Because a funny thing about Peru is that we have faced them plenty of times in the last couple of years. I mean, just in the last year. You have to go back a couple of years. 2021, we faced Peru 3 times in a span of about a couple months. So we get a pretty good idea, and let's hope that the coaching staff of Colombia does as well. So again, make sure to like our Facebook page to get notified as soon as a show is coming up, and get notified as soon as the show goes live. And you can catch the show afterwards. It's always going to be there for you if you can't catch it live. Make sure to also catch it later on. If you want to catch it via audio, you can also listen to the podcast version of this show. It's literally just the audio from the live stream. So you're not going to miss anything from the shows every Monday. And also when, again, the occasion warrants, on other days, as will be the case this Friday. I'll talk about this Friday because we will be live after the game. As soon as the game is over in Barranquilla, we will be live here to break down what will be the game. I mean, what hopefully will be a victory for Colombia. And they better hope so themselves, because if they don't, boy, oh boy. If we're nervous now, we're going to be really nervous after Friday. But let's hope that it's a win. So we'll be here. And again, I'll talk about the plans as far as the streaming goes for the upcoming days, because we have, again, Peru on Friday. We have Argentina also next week on Tuesday, the 1st of February. So we'll have a little bit of a weird schedule, if you will. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit later at the end of the show. For now, again, subscribe, like our Facebook page, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Twitch. We're also on Twitch, don't forget. So catch us on Twitch as well. All 3 platforms live every Monday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain. Nobody talks about Mountain Time in the U.S. Shout out also if you're a European listener. I know we have listeners in the United Kingdom, in Australia, in other European countries, back home in Colombia as well, in the motherland. So thank you so much if you're watching, if you're listening. Again, if you're listening, you can subscribe to our podcast version on iTunes, on Google Podcast, on Stitcher, on SoundCloud. So catch us there. Again, if you can't watch us live, you can always catch the show on our channels in video form, or you can catch the show later in the day when it goes up a few hours after we go live via podcast. Before I get to the game on Friday, I know this is a soccer podcast. I know it's in the title, Colombia Soccer Pod. But I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some really sad news that we got this morning, very early on, out of the world of cycling. And that is, of course, the injury. If you haven't heard, this morning it was reported that our own Egan Bernal, our own Tour de France winner, Egan Bernal, suffered an accident in training with his team, Ineos. Hit a truck on the road and suffered some pretty bad injuries. Looks like he'll be out for about 6 months because of this accident. You know how it is with cycling. It's very risky. And unfortunately happened to our most significant cyclist. And again, I talked about a couple of weeks ago, last week, episode 31, when we relaunched the new season of the show here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, that soccer is a big part of our culture as Colombians, of course, but so is cycling. I feel like cycling is more our sport, if you will. I mean, again, soccer is the most popular one, but I feel like cycling has a special place in Colombians' heart because we feel like our cyclists, especially the ones who come from really poor backgrounds, really poor beginnings. Usually cycling is their way out, and they go from, again, humble beginnings to worldwide superstardom in the world of cycling and conquering the biggest races. I talked about Egan Bernal winning Tour de France. Now it's going to be 4 years, which is it's insane. It's been already 4 years, or 3 years actually, for Egan Bernal, 2019, winning Tour de France. Nairo Quintana, Rigo Uran. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, Lucho Herrera. Again, it goes all the way back to Santiago Botero winning the World Championships in the time trial but again, it feels like we're closer to the cyclists because they have backgrounds that we share, and it feels like they have a more of an uphill climb, no pun intended, than soccer does. I mean, not to say that soccer is not a place where our kids, our young Colombians make their way up and actually find a way out of some really tough realities, which they do. But soccer offers a bigger platform, more money, more opportunity. Cycling, it does, and you have to fight. It seems like a lot harder to become a world-class cyclist out of Colombia than you do in soccer. So, sad news again. So we wish Egan Bernal a speedy recovery. He's the defending Giro d'Italia champion. He won't be able to defend that title this year. But more importantly, especially beyond all of the sporting accomplishments, I think what makes us draw close to cyclists is, again, they're humble. And I don't mean humble, humildes in terms of poverty. I mean humble personality-wise. They're down to earth. They don't forget where they come from, which, again, in soccer doesn't always happen. We have a lot of people who get a big head, and forget where they came from, and kind of forget that they had to scratch and claw and nothing was given to them. In cycling, I feel like it's more the case of this people, this men and women who are, again, more down to earth. They are closer to the people as far as the fact that, again, they love where they're from, where they come from, how they grew up. And they always carry the flag of their country and their region with them in their hearts everywhere. So it's awesome that they have this reality. It's awful that Egan Bernal now has suffered this injury. And you talk about a crossover. We've already had reactions from the soccer world. I know Falcao posted on his social media support for Egan Bernal. And you talk about two quality human beings supporting each other, which is great. Two of the best athletes that we have, especially off the field, in Falcao and Egan Bernal. So, best wishes to Egan, to our campeón, and hopefully he'll be back in time for Tour de France, maybe, to go after that title for a second time, which would be fantastic. If not, I'm sure we'll see him in the Vuelta a España, and maybe he can become the first Colombian to crown all three Grand Tours in their careers, which, again, would be also fantastic to see. So, fuerza to Egan Bernal. And now let's move on to Friday. My God. Sip of water because it's gonna be something. Oh, you gotta cleanse the palate for this one because I don't know how I feel about this one. It's gonna be something else. I feel like on Friday. Friday again, It'll be 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Colombia time. Colombia hosting Peru in the what will be the fourth to last World Cup qualifying game. Again, Colombia today sit in fourth place. We are in qualifying places with a grand total of 17 points. And every time I look at the standings, I just cringe at the fact that Colombia in 14 games have 3 victories. 3. You would think, there's no way a team with 3 victories is going to make it to a World Cup, yet here we are. And that's been pretty much how the qualifiers in South America have gone. The fact that a team like Colombia with 3 wins and 8 draws, more than half of the games Colombia have played, they've tied. It's amazing. It's just incredible. And you throw in the fact that they've only scored 16 goals in 14 games, which is such a huge drop-off from what we were used to back, again, in the Beckerman days, especially the Brazil qualifiers, which were just off the charts for Colombia. Russia was a little bit tougher, and you talk about Peru, let's not forget, Colombia qualified to the World Cup in Peru. A game that they were winning, a game that they ended up drawing, talk about draws, on that fluky, let's be honest, here's a little bit fluky of a free kick goal by Paulo Guerrero. An indirect kick that just happens to go off the hand of David Ospina, his fingertips. And because of that contact, it counted as a goal. Now it allowed Peru to go to the playoff, subsequently to the World Cup, which was a nice story. You know, it's a good story for Peru to go back to a World Cup after, was it like 32 years, I think it was, since 86. So that was cool. I mean, it was cool to see, especially because, we didn't have to deal with it. Colombia went directly to Russia after drawing against Peru, a really tough game, which had that controversy, of course. If you remember, there was a whole controversy, of course, coming mainly out of Chile, who were the victims of Colombia and Peru drawing. The old Pacto de Lima conspiracy that, Falcao, you see on TV Falcao talking to the Peruvian players, basically concocting a draw. It was 1-1. They found out that Chile was getting shellacked by Brazil in Brazil. And Paraguay was losing to Venezuela at home. And that's all that Colombia and Peru needed to, to vote advance. Again, Colombia directly, Peru to the playoff. And, of course, Falcao, as the captain, was going to be like, you know what? Let's just keep it this way. Let's just cruise to the rest of the game. It was like 5-10 minutes left. And they did, and that was it. As my lights go out. Here we go. You pay the power bill. The Pacto de Lima. What as we like to say in Colombian lore, a berrinche coming out of Chile. Of course, I mean, they were left of the World Cup after winning back-to-back Copa Americas. I would be mad too. And of course, I'll be mad because if you forget or if you don't remember, how many times were Colombia victims of this type of a pact at the hands of Argentina and Uruguay? 2002, it happened. All we needed was an Argentina win or an extra goal. I mean, that's what we don't like to admit, but let's not forget, Colombia could have scored one more goal against Paraguay. It was 4-0. I mean, it's a lot to ask, Colombia to win 5-0. One more goal, Colombia would have made the playoffs for 2002, Korea, Japan. 2006, same thing. Colombia go to Paraguay. They beat Paraguay, already qualified. Argentina and Uruguay do their thing. And we get bounced again. And that was it. So for us to be the ones, 4 years ago to do it, hey, it felt a little bit good. I'm not going to lie. But this year, fast forward now to a situation in which Colombia can't draw. It is very simple. Colombia cannot afford neither a draw, much less a loss, because Colombia, again, sit 4th place in the standings, but right behind is Peru. Peru is tied with Colombia in points. Only difference being Colombia has a -1 goal differential. Peru has a -5 goal differential. So, much more reason again for Colombia to win, because not only do you separate yourself from Peru points-wise, and the fact that you have a bigger goal differential, or less negative goal differential than Peru, that should be motivation to Colombia to win. Of course, you also have the fact that right behind Peru is Chile and Uruguay with 16 points. Behind them is Bolivia with 15 points. So a loss, and you can have at least 3 teams leapfrog Colombia in the standings. And boy, are we going to be looking at the abyss. And then we're going to be looking at disaster. So needless to say, and I know I've said it many times today, many times on Wednesday, many times last Monday, must win for Colombia. Now, in pandemic times, we have even more instability in the squads. As you see on the screen, we've already had 2 changes to the Colombia squad since last Wednesday when I was last back on the show to talk about the roster. And this one hurts because I'm a big Luis Muriel fan. I'm a big advocate for Muriel. I think Muriel is tremendously underutilized in Colombia. Tremendously undervalued by Reinaldo Rueda. I think not only as a starting piece as a whole, but just as a striker, I think, given the situation with Duan Zapata, right? We all know what's been going on with Duan. Duan will not be in the squad for Colombia. He's dealing with a bit of a physical issue, as are many other players who are not in, like Carlos Cuesta, who was dealing with COVID, just returned last weekend for Genk, as was the case with John Lukumi, as was the case with many other players as well. I forget the list now, but Duan Zapata was one of them. Luis Sinisterra also, by the way, was one of them. Some of the players that I thought would be a shoo-in. Of course, the biggest one is Juan Fernando Quintero. I ranted about that last week, so if you want to go back and hear my rant on Reinaldo Rueda screwing his own team by organizing a completely meaningless friendly that had no place being on the schedule less than 2 weeks away from this game on Friday, and calling Quintero up for the game, starting him only for him to get injured right before halftime. He won't be in the squad for either Peru or Argentina. So there you go. But again, I talked about it last Wednesday. You can go back and listen to the emergency pod about the Colombia squad. Now, let's talk about who's here and who's not now since then, because Muriel is out dealing with COVID. Also, Jefferson Lerma is out. That one doesn't hurt too much because, number one, we have options in that position, of course. I mean, Lerma is not a starter. I don't think he's a starting caliber player for Colombia anyway, like I think Muriel is. I think Muriel, again, in the absence of a informed Duvan Zapata, I think Muriel should be the starting striker. Not a winger, not a second striker, the striker. I think he's the most complete player we have to be the number 9 for Colombia. Not only as currently constituted under Rueda, but just as a whole. Honestly. Even more than Duvan. I think even more than an informed Duvan Zapata, honestly, because for a team that needs players, to move about the defense, needs players to filter the way through and behind the defense, I think Muriel does that better than Duvan, honestly. Duvan is a killer. I love Duvan. I think, about a year ago, 2 years ago, he was the undisputed striker for Colombia, and no more. I think that's Muriel. Again, the coach doesn't see it that way, and here we are. So Muriel is out. Lerma, again, I don't see it as painfully as I do Muriel, because we got Barrios. It's his spot. No one is taking it away unless he's injured or he's suspended. We got Cuellar. I mean, Cuellar is also one of those Rueda guys who he's relied on Cuellar to play either alongside Barrios or in the place of Barrios sometimes. Being a different type of midfielder, Cuellar is more of a pivot, more of a distributing midfielder. Great on the ball, great vision, great passing, quick decisions most of the time. Defensively is a problem. So I don't sweat it with Lerma, especially because when Muriel was off the squad, and this was really bizarre. This ended up being kind of very comical. So Muriel was the first one announced. In his place, Rueda didn't call a forward. He called Victor Cantillo, who was one of the names that I ranted about not being in the squad. And again, I know the Brazilian season is just getting underway. Cantillo was also trying to figure out whether he was staying at Corinthians. I know there were some rumblings about potentially going back to the Colombian league, maybe going to Mexico. It looks like he's staying in Brazil. Good for him, by the way. I ranted because I thought Cantillo was one of the bright spots, especially in the last game against Paraguay. Even coming off the bench, I mean, you saw a guy who was able to finally get that team moving in Colombia, the offense moving. A team that was so stagnant, so impotente, that was just so helpless at times, getting past a team like Paraguay, which is not, I mean, they're not, the Catenaccio Milan. They're not, the Catenaccio Inter Milan back in the Elenio Herrera days. I mean, they're vulnerable, and Colombia couldn't muster a goal. And we'll talk about goals later, but Cantillo at least was able to create from the back. You talk about that pivot, that distributor. Cantillo is that guy. He's really good, better than Cuellar. So I was glad to see that Rueda finally. It took Muriel leaving, but if he finally realized Cantillo had to be in the squad. Funny enough, when a midfielder then was forced off the squad because of COVID in Lerma, then Rueda calls a striker. So he ended up being this crisscross and mismatch. But the forward of choice was one Luis Javier Suarez. Now Suarez, I love Suarez. I think he's big part of the future for Colombia. He's been having a very good season for Granada so far in the Spanish league. I'm very impressed with Suarez. I think Suarez is almost like a Muriel, close to a Muriel type. Suarez is also can be very speedy, can play out in the wings. Again, I think for Colombia, I would rather have a player of his traits as the striker. Honestly, I'm glad to see him. You can debate, of course, whether it's him or it should have been him. Whether it should have been a guy like what's it called, Cucho Hernandez, who by the way is going to have a new manager. Now today we found out that Claudio Ranieri is going to be out. So Cucho Hernandez, I mean, we'll see if he's going to get a chance because Ranieri has him riding on the bench when clearly when he comes on the pitch, and not because he's Colombian, he's our boy. He's been showing that he can actually be good and be a good piece for Watford. He went with Suarez. Again, I love both. With the roster as it is today, knowing that we have Falcao and Morelos and Miguel Borja, we have supporting them Santos Borré, and we have Harold Preciado. I maybe would have leaned Cucho Hernandez because, again, I think it's almost like you're making this forward pairing, correct? It's almost like you're pairing, again, striker with second striker. It could be Borré and Falcao maybe, and I'll talk about the striker position in a little bit. But it could be, let's say, Borré, Falcao, Preciado, Morelos, I don't know. And then it could be Cucho Hernandez with Borja. Something like that. You want to have 3 and 3. I think ideally 3 and 3, just so you can have options for both. And Cucho can play striker too. We're not limited to Cucho Hernandez just being, a Teo Gutierrez role, if you will. He can play up top. He can play out in the wing as well. It's not ideal either, like Muriel. But I think he can give you a little bit more than Suarez. But again, I don't hate the Suarez call-up. I think he can be an option too, if need be. We're going to have many changes, I think, coming up between now and Friday. We're going to have training sessions coming up. COVID is still lurking around. So I don't discard the possibility of another change, maybe. I don't know if at this point Rueda will be able to call anyone up if Colombia have an absence between now and Friday. Maybe he will. If he does, it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the squad. Hopefully it won't be anyone of note. Hopefully, especially it won't be, your Espinas or your James or your Estefan Medinas or your Davinson Sanchez or Barrios, Mateus Uribe, Luis Diaz. God forbid Luis Diaz gets injured or has COVID between now and Friday. So those were the changes so far. And again, stay tuned for social media platforms at Twitter, Conquer Soccer Pod, Instagram, Colombia Soccer Pod, Facebook, the Colombia Soccer Pod for any news for Colombia between now and Friday. We're also going to be reporting or, forwarding reports of any possible lineups and get your thoughts. I want to hear from you. I got my buddy, Francisco Aviles, my homeboy here in Chicago, voicing his opinion in favor of Camilo Vargas over Ospina. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear your takes. Now, do I agree? No. I'm have Ospina all day, Vargas has been great, by the way. I talked about it last week. Vargas has been awesome for Atlas in Liga MX over the last couple of years. So again, if Ospina were to go down, I think Vargas, we're good with Vargas. And we've already seen it in Copa America. So again, I think we're good. I wouldn't put him over Ospina, even though Ospina has also been dealing with some physical problems last couple of weeks. He's the captain. He's the savior. He's the saint of Colombia. So I won't touch him. But again, that's what I hear. I want to hear from you. What do you think? So follow us on social media for any changes, and let me know what you think about any changes coming up between now and Friday. Let's talk about Friday, because again, Friday we have the game. I'm nervous. Again, I talked about it a lot so far. I'm nervous because of the stakes, but I'm also nervous because of the recent antecedentes when facing Peru. It's funny because, funny and sad, because the Rueda era started against Peru. If you remember back in June. It was supposed to be March. June of 2021, we had those two qualifier games, also Peru and Argentina. We had the draw against Argentina at home that Miguel Borja was the hero of. First time Colombia had a crowd, by the way, in the pandemic in Barranquilla. But before that, Rueda's grand debut back in the Colombian national team, his debut for the second Rueda era was in Lima. And it was, along with the Chile game, the best performances for Colombia. Frankly, the only two good performances for Colombia. Or at least very good performances since Rueda took over, sadly enough. It's only been two games. That one and the Chile one, which you left saying, wow, that's the Colombia we want to see, right? So that game, it was 3-0. It could have been 4-5-0. Colombia had Peru dead to rights from the start. I mean, early on with the Jerry Mina goal. Then, back from halftime, 4 minutes into the second half, Mateus Uribe scores a goal. In one of those great Mateus Uribe goals, in which he crashes the box from the midfield, and the defense has no idea that he's there. It was great. I remember because Stefan Medina gave him the assist. The third goal was Luis Diaz. Before Luis Diaz became who he is today. I mean, before Luis Diaz was, Copa America. Luis Diaz. He scored that goal against Peru, and that was it. Then Daniel Munoz enters the game, gets red carded, and Colombia just kind of take the foot off the pedal. But it was 3-0. Again, it could have been 4-5-0. And you were thinking, man, Colombia on the Rueda, we're going to be fine. If it's going to be like this, boy, we're going directly to Qatar. Start saving the money now. Start mortgaging your house. Start selling them their gimmicks. Start getting them loans for Qatar, because it's going to be a fun ride between now and next December. Boy, have things changed since then. And that's the sad part of all of this, is just thinking about that June era. When you think about the way we beat Peru, the way we drew Argentina, after a dreadful first half, by the way. But again, Colombia were able to come back, pull through with a great Muriel, by the way, if I say so myself. And salvage a draw against Argentina at home. Which again, Argentina, I'll take a point. Then we faced Peru a couple times in Copa America, of course. You remember in the group stage. Not nearly at all what Colombia had against Peru in Lima in June, early June. This time in Brazil, it was not any of that. Colombia lost against Peru. A game in which, after Jerry Mina scored the opening goal for Colombia, in the qualifier game, Jerry Mina scored the opening goal for Peru in this game, in his own goal. An ugly goal. A game in which Colombia could only muster a goal thanks to a penalty kick by Borja. And the guy by the name of Gianluca Lapadula came to be. We saw the best Lapadula, who was one of the revelations of Copa America. I think after, anyone not in Brazil or Argentina, Lapadula was the best player in Copa America. Even above Luis Diaz, and it's going to sound blasphemous and treacherous coming from me, but honestly, because I think Luis Diaz, again, his highest of highs were really high, but also early on, it took him a little bit to get to that point. Lapadula was a nightmare from the start, including this game, which put Colombia, by the way, in a really tough position in the group stage. If you remember, Colombia ended up making it very, very closely or very far from the top spots. So Peru had a lot to do with that. Peru and Colombia then faced again, of course, speaking of Luis Diaz, in the memorable third place game at the beginning of July. 3-2, absolutely riveting. I mean, if you're a neutral, you enjoyed the hell out of this game because it was back and forth. Especially the second half was back and forth. I mean, it was goal for goal. And Luis Diaz was Luis Diaz, baby. What can you say? It was Luchito Diaz in his full splendor with that walk-off rocket past Pedro Gallese. Boy, oh boy. I mean, one of those goals, that's when you realize that goal and the Brazil game. The Brazil goal was like the pound the table goal. And then I feel like the Peru goal at the end was like, okay, this guy is for real. Luis Diaz has arrived now. But again, Colombia had a lot of trouble defensively. Colombia went down in this game, came back up, went up 2-1, allowed Lapadula to score the tying goal, and then Diaz saved the day. So, last 3 games, 2 victories, 1 loss. 1 victory, commanding victory on the road. The other 2, neutral site, not very good performances. Colombia had their flashes in the second game, but nothing more. And it was more about, okay, this Peru team with Lapadula, with Andre Carrillo, with Cristian Cueva. The front 4, which by the way was the same front 4 for both Copa America games, they really complicated things for Colombia. It was Carrillo, Sergio Peña, Cueva, and Lapadula. And behind them, the same back 2, by the way, Tapia and Yotun. So Peru know what to do. Colombia have faced Peru. They should know what to do against this team. Especially because if you look at the 3 games that I just listed, Colombia and Peru play the same systems, pretty much. The only real difference was in that third place game. It wasn't a 4-4-2 for Colombia. It was more about a 4-4-1-1. Instead of having 2 strikers, Colombia played with Cardona and Duan Zapata. That was the only wrinkle. But other than that, it was pretty much the same. These 2 teams played the same systems, the same concepts, the same models, same ideas. All 3 games with different results. It probably makes the game more unpredictable. And if you look at the last lineup, which was that third place game for Copa America, and you look at the lineup for Colombia, Colombia had Camilo Vargas, Francisco's guy, Camilo Vargas in goal, Stefan Medina, Jerry Mina, we had Oscar Murillo, William Tecillo, Cuadrado, Barrios, Cuellar. I just talked about Cuellar and Barrios playing together. Luis Diaz, Edwin Cardona, and Duan Zapata. Of those 11, we're going to have no Cardona, not in the squad. Everybody else is in. Now, I'm going to say that of those 11, I mean, maybe we'll see Murillo, maybe we'll see Barrios, we'll see Luis Diaz. I would hope we'll see Luis Diaz. Maybe Cuadrado against my best wishes. And no Cardona, no Duan Zapata. So, those are the players who started. Then we had the second half. We had Borré coming into the game. Borja entered the game. Chará entered the game. Davinson Sanchez and Muriel. All the 5, except for Muriel, are in the squad. So we're going to have a very similar side. I think that Rueda is not going to differ much as far as the tactical excuse me, the tactical outlay for Colombia. I mean, we saw him play a 4-4-2 against Honduras. We've seen a 4-4-2 at home against Paraguay, against Ecuador. So I think we're going to see a 4-4-2 formation against Peru this Friday. Now, who starts? That's a good question. I don't even want to venture a guess into what Rueda could put out there in Barranquilla on Friday, because every time we guess, he pulls 1 or 2 out of the hat that you don't see coming. I mean, if you're in the business of guessing Rueda lineups, you're going to be broke because this guy is as unpredictable as I've seen any manager be at the Colombia national team level. It's amazing. I mean, every time you think he's going to do something, you read the reports coming out of the training sessions, and he just comes out with something way out of left field. So, I don't know. But I'll tell you my lineup. I think a 4-4-2 is doable. I think a 4-4-2 is a system that can yield optimal results for Colombia, given, again, the circumstances, given the players. I think it's definitely something that the players can make the most out of. I think that, unfortunately, the coaching hasn't made the most out of the players in this system, as we've seen against, again, Paraguay and Ecuador. Those two especially, because those were games Colombia had the chance to really pull away from the field at home, and they didn't. I think, again, 4-4-2 can do. Now, who plays? Again, I think Ospina is going to play. I think he should play. But again, if not, we got Vargas who can back him up. No problem relying on Vargas. If you compare the lineup I just read from the Copa America game, I think Medina, I would put Medina in. Again, I think Medina over Munoz. And I know Munoz is of the preference of a lot of people out there. I said it on Wednesday. I think Medina offers more balance, if you will. As in, he can do very good things offensively and defensively, which is what you want out of a fullback, ideally. I think he and James can do something really good. And if you think about it again, you need a guy who can project down the line. If you have a James, playing as the false winger on the right, James is going to push in. You got to have a guy who's going to just rocket down the sideline, but not just fly down the sideline. Do so in a smart way, and when he gets the ball, make good decisions, crossing, passing, stopping, or even shooting. I trust more in Medina to do that than Munoz. I think Munoz, again, very good fundamentals, but I think Munoz can get rattled more easily than Medina. I trust more in Medina. I think I will start him. And again, I think he and James can do something really, really cool on the right-hand side. And Medina has the advantage, too, of the fact that he can, again, make sound decisions and execute well, passing or crossing. And when you have, the strikers we have, like Borja and Falcao and Morelos, and a team in Colombia which has shown time and time that they do rely a lot on crosses. Medina is the guy. So I would go with Ospina. I would go with Medina. The center backs, it hurts not to have Cuesta because Cuesta was the guy. Cuesta was the guy. And I hope he's going to be fine for March because we're going to need him in March for sure. In the absence of Cuesta, we have Davinson Sanchez, we have Oscar Murillo, we have Jerry Mina, we have maybe Tecillo. And since there ain't no way I start Jerry Mina now, it's down to Davinson and Oscar Murillo. And we have no choice but to rely on Davinson. Murillo, I trust Murillo. Because Murillo, again, over the past couple of months, Murillo had been a standout in the back. With Cuesta beside him, which was a great partnership, with Davinson Sanchez beside him, which Murillo ended up being almost like a defenseman and a half for a shambolic performance by Davinson Sanchez. He was bad. Oh man, he was bad. Davinson was. Last time he was in Colombia. So I start him. I'm glad, like I said on Wednesday, to see Davinson back with the trust of his coach at Spurs. Antonio Conte plays him. Antonio Conte relies on him. Davinson is in rhythm. Davinson has minutes, competitive minutes especially. So that's good. I hope that that trust that Conte has on Davinson really boosted Davinson's confidence, because again, I think I don't know what it was, if it was just lack of confidence or what it was, but Davinson was just uncharacteristically bad for Colombia. So I hope that Davinson is back, full confident in his abilities, and we can have, the best Davinson. Best Davinson Sanchez is really good. And if he and Murillo, again, are fine, work well together, I think we can breathe a little easier on defense. On the left, it's always the question, right? Do you go for the defensive stronghold in Tecillo? Do you go for the guy who can project forward in Mojica? I'm not even going to address Freddy Nestroza as an option, because I think he there's no way he should be on the squad. I don't think he can really do anything to contribute differently. Now, if he plays, and he does, then I'll be here on Friday and I'll be the first one to praise him and apologize. But on paper, I don't think he really offers much of anything. So, again, given the situation, the stakes, and the fact that he's also done really, really well, I think Johan Mojica has played his best soccer for Colombia over the last month, in November. The guy was really good. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, in his performance in Uruguay. I thought he did really well on the road for a guy who, again, we know that he's a really good guy going forward. Really, I think the best fullback when it comes to crossing is Johan Mojica. Defensively, we always had thoughts and questions, right? But he really showed out against Uruguay. He really showed out against Paraguay. I was really impressed. So, given that, and the fact that, again, in form, playing for Elche, getting minutes, starting, that's your guy. You need a guy who can really, again, break down and offer something in the 2v1s on the left as well. I talked about it with Medina, the left-hand side too, because we saw what a guy like Jairo Moreno did with Luis Diaz when they played against Chile. I think, I hope that Mojica can replicate the same with Luis Diaz on the left, and they can really give, whether it's Advíncula or, whoever it is for Peru on the left-hand side, they can give trouble. I think Mojica can do that. So, Ospina, Medina, Davinson, Oscar Murillo, Mojica. In the midfield, it's Barrios and Mateus. Although, Barrios is for sure. They're no moving him. I love Mateus. I'm really tempted to lean towards Cantillo. Again, given the game, hoping and expecting Colombia to have the ball most of the time, especially in the first half, you need a guy who can really break lanes from the midfield. You need a guy also who can offer an outlet, because if you remember, especially the Ecuador game, my God, their pressure, their high press, did Colombia a lot of trouble. I know Barrios started the game. Let me look really quick, because I forget who played with Barrios. I think it was Cuellar in that game. Let me look really quick. It was Uribe. Okay, so it was Mateus and then Cuellar entered the game. Both, Cuellar better than Mateus really had a lot of trouble as far as receiving the ball and making fast decisions as far as passing the ball off pressure. I think Cantillo is the best guy to do that. And not only to get the ball quickly off facing pressure, but also to do it in a way that really advances the offense. So I would lean Cantillo. But again, I think it's either him or Mateus. Mateus also, again, Mateus box to box, right? Classic box to box guy. I really hope that he can make fast decisions because I think Peru can give Colombia a lot of trouble if, and I would think they will follow that Ecuador blueprint and press Colombia high. Press Colombia love to play out of the back. Just again, press that pressure press that creation off the back, and really try to trouble Colombia, trouble Barrios, trouble either Uribe or Cantillo, whichever one plays. So again, quick decisions, and that's one of the keys. Quick decisions. If a center back has the ball, show out. Again, check with them, check in. Check in, receive, and play out quickly as fast as you can. Which means that, because what failed in that game against Ecuador as well, against high pressure, is the fact that when Uribe and Cuellar and Barrios received the ball, you didn't really see much of Quintero. Quintero showed more. Either him and Luis Diaz, which is something that I have, pending assignment for Luis Diaz, is that Luis Diaz has to be better as far as offering himself as an outlet as well. Luis Diaz, I feel like even today, he gets very easily corralled out by the touchline. So if he needs to draw in towards the center for Cantillo to pass on the ball and relieve the pressure. Barrios, same thing. Even the center backs, the full backs, active. Diaz has to be active and really, again, be that outlet for those center backs and defensive mids to not risk losing the ball in their own territory, because that would be havoc, as we saw against Ecuador, as we saw against Argentina, and other opponents throughout the Rueda era. So that's a must. I would lean Cantillo because of that. So Barrios, Cantillo, James on the right. James, again, back in activity, thankfully, no injuries, thankfully. Had the one game against Paraguay, his grand return for Colombia. I thought, like I said on Wednesday, if anything, he had the right attitude. He had the urgency. He had the hustle. The guy was back to being, at least in attitude, the James that we know and love. I think, again, getting into the rhythm of things back, he was out for so long from this team. Getting back into the rhythm with his teammates, working with Medina or Munoz, with Barrios, with the strikers, the forwards, with Luis Diaz too. I think just give him time. I think this week is going to be really good for him. And I expect James to be, again, that hustler and that creator too. I think James, now is the time for James to take that next step into being, back being the guy that we know he can be for Colombia, and really be, again, the leader, the difference maker that we know he can be. It'll be important, back to what I said before, that partnership with the fullback on the right-hand side, and really having the vision, because part of the reason why Colombia hasn't scored in 5 straight qualifier games is that they've struggled mightily, Colombia, to be able to really break through defenses, especially, low blocks and tight spaces. They really struggle. That's why I said before, Colombia relied too much on playing the ball to the fullbacks and crossing. And we don't have, besides Falcao, we don't really have, those aerial, what do you call them? Forwards with aerial prowess, if you will. Muriel is not really that guy. Borja, nah, I'm not really convinced. He can do it. Morelos, same thing. So Falcao is the guy, right? Which I'll talk about him in a second. But I hope that James can be that guy to really, again, just be that El Pasador, that guy who can filter passes to the strikers, to Luis Diaz making the run seam from the left, to the fullbacks as well, to Mateus Uribe, or Cantello, crashing into the box. That's going to be huge. Because Colombia has really struggled in creation. Only when things get tough and they have to win because it's the 85th minute and they have to score, then that's when they start really, risking those passes and really being more active and being more daring when it comes to feeding balls in behind defenders. Colombia should do that from the start. And then the strikers should put it in. Hopefully we can end the drought. Luis Diaz on the left, that's a no-brainer. He is the difference maker. He's the different guy. He's been flying, still scoring now for Porto. He's in great form. And Peru know that pretty well, So it works out in the fact that, Peru know him well. Again, I think for Diaz, the key, as I talked about before, is that he needs to be able to move about off the ball to not be able to be corralled so easily. Because Diaz, I go back to the game against Brazil, for example, and also the game against Paraguay to an extent in Ecuador. In the first halves, we didn't really see much of Diaz. Diaz was double-teamed constantly on the left-hand side. But he didn't really make too much of an effort to shake off the double team. It was only when the defenders were starting to get tired, that's when he found spaces. That's when we saw Luis Diaz really making those runs, dribbling past defenders. That's when we saw, Luis Diaz at his best, right? But again, I don't want Luis Diaz to wait a half, 60 minutes, for defenders to get tired for him to finally start making those runs and those movements. I want him to start doing it now. Again, if he has to go and drift into the center more, then let him do it, because what I hope is that if he does, again, number one, that's a safety valve for the center backs and the midfielders. But also, I hope that as we saw at times against Ecuador, he'll be able to meet James in the middle of the field. Now in opponent's territory, find him, find the second striker or the forward, and start, again, that's when you start with those combinations. You start with those combinations, give and go. He can play off James, then make the runs in behind the defenders, and James can feed him, or by making those runs, he can attract defenders, stretch the defense, and James can see, a flying Borré, a flying Borja, flying Falcao in between the defenders. And there you go. That's a way to open up a defense. You don't have to wait, to get the ball forward and for everybody to push up and to, for Peru to have 10 players behind the ball for you to look for those deep runs in behind defenders. No. You can do it in transition. You can do it, as the ball progresses. When the ball gets to that that zone 2, if you will, that creation zone, you can start looking for those runs, and that's what I trust in James that he can do. He can look up and see, an already moving striker forward, or Luis Diaz as a winger going down the line. Up top, I got Borré and Falcao. I think I know with Falcao, I'm probably going to be off the mark. Rueda, his choice is Borja. He's the guy he's relied upon. Again, and Borja and Borré have done well at times, namely the Chile game. They were phenomenal together. But I got a really sour taste off of the last few games, especially like the Sunday game. And again, I said it was meaningless. But him and Quintero were the guys who were trusted upon to be, to be the usuals, if you will, amongst all those new players for Colombia against Honduras. He didn't do anything. Borja was really out of it. And yes, Borja, again, he's not in form. He's been in the off season. This is his first game back, in the new year before he joins Junior for good. So I was saying, Falcao in this evolution of this, Falcao late career, we've seen more of that collaborative, move about, pivot when he has to, really try to be a support for his players, right? For his teammates. But he's still a killer, man. He's still a killer. So I think, again, in the absence of Muriel, he's the best all-around guy. And again, if you want to have a guy who can, win in the air with those crosses, he's the guy. I think I would start Falcao. I would start Borré with him. Borré is phenomenal. Borré is also on fire with Frankfurt. So I trust in Borré that he can have a great performance on Friday. And especially, in what I think he does best, which is, be that support for your Falcao, especially Falcao, that striker, if you will. And again, he's been scoring. Borré's been scoring. So, don't count him out. I think, to me, that's the ideal 11 to me. Again, I'm not even going to venture out an 11 for Rueda because who knows? I would think, again, knowing his tendencies, that we're going to see Borja, that we may see Jeremina, God help us all. That we're going to see maybe Cuellar, maybe. Which is my fear, that he trusts Cuellar more than Quintillo and maybe more than Uribe. And probably Munoz. Now, there's a guy I haven't mentioned who I think you're thinking about, and that's Juan Guillermo Cuadrado. I said it last week. I don't trust today's Cuadrado in Selección. I don't trust him to start at all. I think Cuadrado, again, despite what he does for Juventus, which is great, Cuadrado's become a detriment to Colombia. I don't want to see Cuadrado start at all. Not as a winger. Not, my God, not as a fullback. We can't afford that again. I mean, I know against Chile, it was a kamikaze choice. But even in that game, I mean, he was so outplayed by Jairo Moreno on the left. It was not even close. And Cuadrado's decision making is just awful today at Selección. I feel like he just feels like such a, I guess an entitlement, or I don't know about entitlement is the right word, but he feels like he should be the hero, like the creator, the El Chacho, if you will. And against the better judgment of the collective, he makes so many bad decisions now all the time that, again, that's why I say he's become a detriment to Colombia in recent games, to the point where, again, I didn't even mention him because I don't want to see him start against Peru. I'd rather have, again, Medina, and I'd rather have James all day. So I don't want to see Cuadrado in the 11. I am afraid that Rueda may take another, leap of faith and put him at fullback, which, as we saw against Chile, is a very risky proposition because Cuadrado defensively is no good. Not anymore. Not for Colombia. He's no good, and I don't want to see, Cueva or Carrillo or whoever it is plowing through our left side, creating havoc, and just, making us suffer unnecessarily. We don't need that. We don't need Cuadrado. So Cuadrado can be off the bench. If we need him, he'll come in the game. Hopefully he'll come in the game to actually contribute and play for the team and not just try to, lucirse, not try to show off and be, this superstar that is not anymore for Colombia. 4 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Colombia time, 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific. Colombia, Peru, we have to win. It's very simple. Let's talk about next streams because, again, we will be back on Friday. As soon as the game is in the final whistle, I'll be sitting in this chair getting ready for the recap. You see on the screen about 5:15, 6:15 Eastern. It's about an estimate. Again, game is at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern, so about 2 hours, give or take. It's about 5:15. So again, but if you're watching the game, as soon as it's off the air, the game is, come here to YouTube, to Facebook, to Twitch. Come join me because we're going to break it down. Win, lose, or draw, we will be here. If it's a win, I'll tell you how they did it. We'll celebrate together or, breathe a sigh of relief together. Join me. We can talk about it. I want to hear what you think. If they draw or lose, God have mercy on their soul because I'm going to be pissed. Excuse my language. I'm going to be mad. And I know you will too. And I want this to be a place where you can also let off your steam. So join me as we let some steam, some anger off, frustration, if, God forbid, Colombia don't win on Friday. Again, right after the game. So join me after the game. Now, after that, Colombia play Argentina on Tuesday. So there will be no Monday show. Or no, I should say, yeah, there will be Monday show. So, yes, we will be back on Monday. No Liga de Play. So, we will be back on Monday to preview Argentina. Then on Tuesday, February 1st, we'll be back. Same thing. After the game against Argentina. Win, lose, or draw. And, we're going to be praying for, something. A point, if you will. Somehow or another. And we'll be back. So we will be back for that stream. We will be back to analyze it all. Let's see what happens. But again, after the game on Tuesday as well, I'm looking at the time. I escaped my it was 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. So about 8:30, 8:45 Eastern, 7:45 Central. We'll be here to recap Argentina, Colombia next Tuesday. On that note, thank you so much again. Follow us on social media on Twitter at Concu Soccer Pod, Instagram Colombia Soccer Pod, Facebook The Colombia Soccer Pod. Subscribe, like our pages on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Leave us a comment on the chat. Email us right there, colombianocolumbia@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts. Heading into Friday. The best of luck for Colombia. Suerte para Colombia. I hope that we can see each other again after Colombia beat Peru and Colombia can, reroute their GPS, their way into Qatar 2022. On that note, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again Friday after Colombia, Peru. Have a great rest of your day, whatever day that is for you.